Great, so welcome back to grade 7 math. We are now looking at translations, and translations is just the fancy word for slide, which is what we learned in our earlier grades. So what we have here is when we plot a point on the Cartesian graph or the Cartesian coordinate system, we call this the object. And the object is the thing we start with, and it's normally a point and it's labeled with a capital letter. So if we plot these points, A, which is at 1, 0, so if I plot this here, I'll label it A. And I have B, which is at negative 3, 1, which is here. Letter C is at, point C is at negative 3, 4. Now, normally I would label all of the numbers on these axes as well. This is the y-axis, this is the x-axis, and I would just label 1, 2, 3, 4. And the last one is 1, 4, so 1, 4, I would put it here, and that's the letter D. And so let's just take my line tool and let's just create some lines. It's not a great line, but that's okay. Great. And so now we have a shape, and we can look at this and we see that it has one set of parallel sides, but that's all it has. So we call this a trapezoid. Okay, so let's translate the shape according to the translation 2 blocks to the right and 3 blocks down. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change colors then. And what I'm going to do is I'll look at each point individually. So let's start with A, and I'm going to move it 2 blocks to the right and 3 blocks down. So that means A started at 1, 0. And now it's going to move. And so an arrow means move or translate or move it in a certain way. And I'm going to move this 2 to the right. So if I'm at A, I go 1, 2, and I'm going to move that 3 down. So that ends up at this point here. So it's just like following steps: 1, 2 to the right, and 3 down. So this is how much it moved. It moved from this point to that point. So let me just erase this marking first. Great, so A became now a new A, and it's A with an apostrophe. And so this little apostrophe is called prime. So the ending image has what we call prime points. So A becomes A prime, and we'll just give the coordinates of those a little bit down here. And let's just label the rest of these. So B will move 2 to the right and 3 down, so it'll move this shape. Now, while we're moving it, consider in this head this little rectangle that it's creating, that it's moving this diagonally across this rectangle. And all of these rectangles should be exactly the same. So all of these arrows, let's just get this straight line here. This arrow, yeah. So all of these arrows should be identical. So C moves 2 to the right and 3 down to become C prime, and D moves 2 to the right and 3 down to become D prime. So what I could do is, after I have all these arrows, now I can connect the dots, and I'll just change that one to green now. And I'm going to connect all of these 4 new points, all these prime points. So now the coordinates of these prime points, so let's look at A prime, and let's read that one. A prime is now at 3, negative 3. B prime is now at negative 1, negative 2. It is a little bit confusing when I have a lot of lines in the place. I don't have to draw these kind of arrow lines, these diagonal lines. It's just for show for now, but I don't need to show that on my final work. C prime is minus 1, 1. And D prime is 3, 1. So what I did is I took each point and I moved it 2 to the right and 3 down. And even if you look at the shape of the actual rhombus itself, it hasn't changed very much at all. So let me just finish this. Just make this arrow look a little bit better here. And now I have that all of these arrows have moved this rhombus from the original point to its final point. So if I were to take this and to translate it again, I'll have to either just move it again to the right and 3 down. And so I could find new coordinates of that. But if I move a prime point to a new point again, then these new points would be called double prime. Oops, let's just get back to the pen. And so these are called double prime. So if A prime gets translated again, it becomes a double prime. Whoops, not like that. It should be 2 apostrophes, like that. And I can continue to do that. If I translate it again, it'll be a triple prime, a quadruple prime. I could have even like multiple little apostrophes here to show all the new images of the original object. Finally, this arrow that shows this translation, it's a really special word that we won't really use very often in grade 7, but it is called the translation vector. And what's cool about a vector is that it shows 2 things. It shows a direction, so which means it shows me where I am going, but it also shows me a magnitude, or how far am I going. So it tells me what direction I'm going, and it tells me how far I'm going in that direction. So it's basically just telling me, in this case, go 2 to the right and 3 down. It's telling me a specific direction, and it's telling me a specific number of blocks as well. So this is translations. There's a couple of other examples that are at the bottom of this page that you could try on your own, and we'll look at those in class again. And then there's a couple of examples that we want to try for homework. So review this lesson if you need to review some of the vocabulary. The vocabulary would be object, image, regular point, image point, or object point and image point. And these points are prime points. And this movement is called the translation vector. The red shape is the object, the original, and then the green shape is the image, or the new version of the original object. Great. So hopefully you got this lesson today, and see you next time.